Hey, what's happening, guys? What's going on YouTube? You guys have tuned into Rules for Rebels, and I had a couple interesting things I wanted to discuss in today's video. It's going to be a little bit all over the place, but hopefully I'll be able to kind of tie it all together for you guys. And I thought this was kind of interesting, and I thought it would make for some interesting discussions. So we're coming off a Super Bowl weekend. This was kind of an interesting Super Bowl. It was the first Super Bowl ever in the midst of a global pandemic. I know technically COVID was around last February, but the lockdowns and things like that really didn't start happening until March. So last year's Super Bowl, as far as I remember, was still fairly normal. So this was the first year for that. A lot of companies who'd been advertising the Super Bowl for literally decades had decided not to run ads this Super Bowl year, which made for an interesting Super Bowl. Just the fact that Tom Brady, at 40 whatever years old he is, the longevity of Tom Brady. And one of the things I wanted to talk about is something that just kind of highlights the longevity of Tom Brady. Is we're going to kind of touch on some of the companies who were the big Super Bowl advertisers during Tom Brady's first Super Bowl. Companies like AOL, Blockbuster, Radio Shack, Circuit City, and others. And it's kind of crazy to think, Tom Brady's first Super Bowl, it was like an entirely different world that we were living in. I mean, I don't even think social media was really around at that time. And a couple other things just about kind of the business of the Super Bowl. I thought that would be kind of interesting. But that whole topic and kind of hearing all the turnover of companies, all these companies that are no longer around or are on their deathbeds, companies like Sears and Yahoo and some others, it got me thinking about, the longevity of companies. I know there's a stat out there, something to the effect of, 70-something% of the S&P 500 that was around back in, say the late 60s, early 70s, is no longer around today. And I know there's talk that half of the S&P 500 or half of the companies that are on the S&P 500 today aren't going to be around a decade from now. So that kind of got me thinking, I talk a lot about building lasting businesses as opposed to like finding winning products and drop shipping and things like that. And, it kind of got me thinking, like, we're living in a different world. And so one of the questions I wanted to pose to you guys is, do you think that we're still going to have legacy brands 20 years, 50 years, 60 years from now? Coca-Cola's been around, probably, I don't feel like doing the math in my head, but well over 100 years, probably closing in on 150 years. Harley Davidson's a really old company. Ford's a really old company. It seems like today there's a whole lot of turnover with things. I think Google is probably here to stay, but think about how big MySpace was a number of years back, and MySpace doesn't even exist anymore. And so it just got me thinking, like, in this fast-moving world we're living in this world we're living in where technology is moving so fast and changing so quickly, do you think that there will be legacy brands created today that are around 50 years from now? And do you think that it's easier or harder today to create a long-lasting legacy brand like it was 100 years ago, 120 years ago when Coca-Cola was around? Back then you didn't have so many choices. Even 20, 30 years ago, you didn't have nearly as many choices in terms of, like, even cereals you would buy, fast food restaurants you would go to. So was it easier to form a legacy brand back then? Because of the times, was a brand like Coca-Cola, for example, able to build such a big footprint and still be around today? And, like, is something like that today still possible? So those are kind of all questions that I have for you guys, as well as things that I thought would be interesting to discuss. So first, the business of the Super Bowl. We already kind of covered this in the video from a couple weeks ago. I'll drop a link down below if you haven't seen it, but a bunch of big companies, Budweiser and many others, decided not to advertise in the Super Bowl this year. They instead decided to spend money on COVID awareness or donate money to COVID causes and things like that. So that was kind of a big change for the Super Bowl this year. I know, things are kind of tight for a lot of companies. A lot of companies are struggling, and a lot of companies had to ask, is it worth spending the tens of millions of dollars for a Super Bowl spot that isn't necessarily going to convert into sales, but is just kind of being done for brand awareness? Is that worthwhile? And also, in today's world where you can target, here's kind of a funny thing. If you guys have ever watched like the show Mad Men, if you look at advertising and marketing back then, it was very, very kind of a sexier. It's very kind of, there's a lot of nostalgia looking back at it. That was a cool show. But if you think about it, back then, advertising and marketing was kind of like spray and pray, right? Like you put a message out there and you really don't know how well the message does. I mean, people like the commercial or they don't like the commercial, but it wasn't super measurable. Whereas now, think about with Facebook ads, Google Shopping, Google Ads, things like that. Like you can market to a very specific audience. You can target things very precisely, and you can know exactly how much that campaign made, what orders actually came through from that campaign. When we can target customers so precisely, are these huge spends on essentially just brand awareness that aren't really going to convert into anything? Is that still worthwhile? And is Super Bowl advertising going to be kind of on its way out, or at the very least will costs have to come down? I thought that was kind of interesting. This is a little bit different, not so much from a business and marketing standpoint, but something that I never knew: Super Bowl halftime performers are not paid. Actually, I shouldn't say they aren't paid. I guess they're paid what I think actors, musicians are normally like in a union. What is it, like the SAG union or something like that? So I guess Super Bowl performers are paid like a union rate, which is pretty low. But you get these big performers. Think about the performers that have performed in the Super Bowl over the years, whether it be what I think Shakira, Beyonce, Michael Jackson a number of years back did it. And you have some of the biggest performers in the world, and they're not being paid to perform for the Super Bowl. I know Michael Jackson had asked for $1 million. I think they turned him down. This year it was Future. But I was really kind of surprised to learn that they're either not paid or paid very little. And here was another interesting thing. Future spent, I believe it was $6 or $7 million of his own money because the amount of money that the NFL or whoever puts on the Super Bowl allotted for the show wasn't up to his standards or his production quality. So he actually dropped in $6 or $7 million of his own money, and it was kind of interesting. Like, is that a smart investment? And in terms of why people perform at the Super Bowl show for free, I know with J-Lo and Shakira and some others, I think on average they see about an 800% increase in downloads of their music following the performance. If you're young and into music or out at the clubs or whatever else, you're probably aware of Future, but think about how many of your parents, older brothers and sisters, or just people who aren't really into music were exposed to Future's music by watching the Super Bowl, right? Like probably like 150 million, if not more people. So kind of a smart marketing move to perform for free, but get yourself in front of people. But I thought it was interesting that he spent $7 million of his own money. And then in terms of one of the things I wanted to touch on was the companies that were advertising during Tom Brady's first Super Bowl, which I believe was back in 2002. Some of the bigger advertisers or bigger names back in 2002 were AOL, Blockbuster, Radio Shack, Circuit City, CompUSA, Sears, Hot Jobs, Yahoo, and Gateway Computers. And I think a couple of these companies may have been bought out and may still sort of be alive through other brands. I think CompUSA wound up being bought out by Tiger Direct, and I think Tiger Direct was eventually bought out by somebody as well. But if you think about it, AOL technically still around, but basically dead. Blockbuster completely gone. I think there was one Blockbuster store left in somewhere up near Anchorage, Alaska, and I think the only reason that one lasted, they don't have the quality of internet to actually be able to stream movies, so there was one remaining Blockbuster left. Radio Shack is dead, although I believe some company wound up buying the naming rights to them. Circuit City, dead. CompUSA, I believe they were bought out, but CompUSA, for all intents and purposes, is dead. Sears is on their deathbed. I don't believe Hot Jobs is around anymore. And, Yahoo's still around, but I think Yahoo Answers died off. A lot of the Yahoo games and Yahoo properties have kind of died off. Yahoo has tried to, over the years, make a number of kind of strategic investments to, be prominent or be relevant again. That's kind of wound up failing. But that kind of got me thinking, it's amazing to see the turnover between 2002 and 2021. What is that, 19 years or whatever? It's amazing to see the turnover in companies. And I remember hearing the stat before that, 77% of the S&P 500 from the 60s or 70s has turned over and is no longer around. And again, I've read the stat a number of times that, people project that in the next 10 years, at least 50% of the companies on the S&P 500 today aren't going to be around. So it kind of got me thinking, like, is it easier or harder today to create a legacy brand? Will legacy brands that last 20, 50, 100 years be formed today and continue to go on in the future? Or are there too many choices today? Is there too much noise today? Is technology moving too fast today? What companies around today do you think will be here in 20 years, 50 years, 100 years? Whether it be Google, whether it be Facebook, whether it be, Under Armour, whatever other brand. But the world moves so fast. Styles change so fast, people's interests change so fast, and there's so much noise out there. It seems really, really difficult to create a legacy brand today. And I've always kind of been big on the idea of building a brand and building a sustainable business over, I like short-term hustles, but one thing that's been frustrating to me with affiliate marketing and a lot of other hustles is things go really well for a while, you put a lot of time and effort into them, but eventually everything kind of dies out and you find yourself starting from scratch. I realize a lot of people out there are searching for winning products and trying to drop ship and doing other things. And my advice is oftentimes, try to build a sustainable business, try to build an actual business rather than trying to scrape together a couple bucks real quick. And, it kind of got me, kind of seeing this kind of got me questioning, like, is that the move today? Is, hustle, strike while the iron is hot, make your money while you can, but eventually nothing's really going to last. So why try to build something that lasts? Really more than anything, just kind of wanted to stir up a discussion with today's video, but let me know what you guys think. Is it easier or harder today to create a legacy brand than it would have been 50 or 100 years ago? Are there any brands either out now or being formed right now or kind of hot companies right now that you think will turn into legacy brands? Or is everything that's around today going to be gone, years down the road? Let me know your thoughts on all of this. Drop a comment down below. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to the channel, click that subscribe button below. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll catch you on the next video.